And so the stage is set. It's February 7th, 1996, and the first episode of Dragon Ball GT is about to air. This is exciting. We're heading into a whole new Dragon Ball anime. The possibilities are endless. Remember, this is just a week after Dragon Ball Z ends, with Goku flying off into the distance with his new pupil Oob. Then we know from the next episode preview that Goku will be turning back into a kid, and GT as a whole intends to take a step back from the insanity of the Buu saga and get back to the series' roots. An adventure through space, a grand tour if you will. We're gonna ease up on the dark and serious stuff and get a little silly again. Fun and adventure, more like the early stuff. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with our heroes meeting wacky new characters and exploring strange new lands, all to collect the 7 Dragon Balls. Now, it's episode 1 of a new show. Obviously, you want to make a good first impression. That's key for any show. Start strong. So, how did Toei follow such a beloved, legendary story? How did they kick off a whole new generation of Dragon Ball?
How about with the single worst episode of Dragon Ball ever made?
Now, I know that sounds like hyperbole. I know. YouTubers love to do the hyperbole thing and hate on things way too hard. But I'm gonna tell you exactly why this episode is so bad. After watching the entire series again, twice, back to back, I don't have a single solitary doubt in my mind that this, GT Episode 1, the mysterious Dragon Balls appear, Goku becomes a child, is the worst episode of Dragon Ball ever written. Everything in this episode is wrong. It's all wrong. Right from the start, I knew something was wrong. It just felt off. 20 years ago when I first watched this, I couldn't tell you why exactly, but now I get it. I know exactly what was wrong. From the very start, the team behind this show just didn't get Dragon Ball. They didn't understand Toriyama's style at all. And everything we see in this first episode of GT is emblematic of the entire series as a whole. So I'm gonna do a deep dive into this episode because just from doing that, it'll explain so much. And then I'll get into some overall issues that plague the entire show from start to finish. Those issues all start right here in episode 1. Okay, so the first thing we see is awesome. It's the OP for the show, Dan Dan Kokoro Hikare Teku. This song is beautiful. I remember when I first heard it, it got stuck in my head, and it pretty much never went away. This is a quintessential never skip OP. I binged these 64 episodes twice, and I did not skip Dan Dan a single time. The actual video that accompanies the song is also really great. It's beautifully animated and uses imagery directly from the concept art that Toriyama himself drew for the show. You watch this and hear this song, and you're sold on this adventure through space with Kid Goku, Pan, and Trunks. It's really well done. So for whatever reason, they absolutely nailed the OP for GT. Dan Dan is an iconic Dragon Ball song that has stood the test of time. It's appeared time and time again in video games and other media, and while it's not Head Chala, there's no doubt it's a top tier piece of Dragon Ball music, and perhaps GT's greatest contribution to Dragon Ball as a whole. I couldn't stop humming that iconic melody the entire time I was putting together this video. It's so great. So far so good, right? I mean, that was some pretty glowing praise. Like I said, if I see something from GT I like, I'm gonna bring it up and give it the love it deserves. That's going on the list, and we'll keep updating this list as we continue, assuming there's anything else that's good in this show. But after a banger of an OP like that, how bad could this first episode be? Well, what if I told you the good stuff ends there? Because it does. One thing that already threw me off is I didn't see Oob anywhere in that OP. Again, imagine if you're a viewer in Japan that just watched the finale to Z. It's like, where's that kid that Goku flew off with? I only see Goku, Pan, and Trunks. That's a bit worrying. And then the episode begins. We start from the point of view of Pilaf. He's heading towards Kami's lookout. And here we are, not even 10 seconds into the episode, and the questions begin. how would Pilaf know where Kami's lookout is located? Like, it's literally called the Heavenly Realm. I figure it's pretty out of the way from regular mortals. Like, airplanes aren't flying by the Heavenly Realm, right? I always figured you couldn't just find it. Anyways, I'm not totally opposed to Pilaf coming back, especially if we're going back to the roots of the show. He was the first main villain of the entire story, and as we saw with Super, even Toriyama wanted to bring Pilaf's gang back. So in this case, the GT team really did understand Toriyama's thinking. But that stops real fast. So Goku and Oob are training inside Kami's lookout, somewhere. I guess the door to the Room of Spirit and Time is still destroyed, so this is just a similar area where superpowered people can fight with no restrictions. Oob is looking absolutely ripped, and they're shooting these massive ki blasts at each other and completely wrecking the place. Last time we saw him, Oob was a little skinny boy and his moveset consisted of kicking. So I figure some time has passed since the end of Z and he's become a lot stronger. Well, just how much time has passed? I'm sure they'll tell us soon, right? Meanwhile, Pilaf is scaling the side of the lookout. I guess with all the chaos going on, neither Goku, Oob, Dende, or Popo can sense there's an intruder. But the question remains, why is Pilaf going to the lookout anyways? Well, Pilaf himself tells us that he's discovered that the quote, ultimate Dragon Balls are here in the Heavenly Realm. Oh, you mean the Earth's Dragon Balls? Maybe Goku or Dende went to gather them together? I guess that makes sense. Maybe you'd want them gathered just in case they're needed for an emergency wish. We know Pilaf has access to a Dragon Radar of his own, so maybe he's just getting really lucky. It's a Dragon Ball heist. He's gonna snatch them while the good guys aren't looking. Oh, they aren't the Earth's Dragon Balls we recognize. With the red stars, these are Black Star Dragon Balls. Okay, here's a question. How in the name of God has there been a full set of Dragon Balls sitting at Kami's lookout all this time? How could Pilaf have the technology to find these Dragon Balls? Is Bulma's radar technology not capable of this? How are we only now learning about this full alternate set of Dragon Balls? If the very first episode of your new show is introducing something that in no way at all could possibly line up with the original story, then there's a serious problem. We're only 5 minutes into GT and things are already going downhill fast. These questions I keep asking, these are things a competent writing team would think of and know not to do, or at least write in a proper explanation. They'd plug those holes in the logic. They'd answer those questions. Next, Pilaf explains that these Dragon Balls were created by the previous god of Earth before he split with Piccolo Daimao. How do you know that? Who told you that? Did the writers tell you? Why is Pilaf the one telling us this? You could get this information across through, I don't know, Piccolo himself? Instead, you have me questioning every sentence being uttered in this show so far. We're 5 minutes into the first episode. Then they imply that because the previous god created these Dragon Balls, who was stronger than the Kami we know that created our Dragon Balls, that means the Black Star Balls are more powerful. Which is like, okay, how powerful do you need them to be? When have the regular old Red Star Dragon Balls ever not been powerful enough? Dende even buffed them himself, so any potential issues with difficult wishes are now not a problem for our dragon. We cut back to Goku with Dende, Popo, and Oob. We learn that this all-out fight between Goku and Oob is Oob's, quote, graduation ceremony. This is the proper match Goku dreamed of having with Oob right at the end of DBZ. It's happening before our very eyes. Actually, it happened, and it's over. Oob then says to Goku, "Thank you for staying with me for so many years." And then, at the 7-minute point of the first episode of GT, Oob flies off, and he's gone. So essentially what happened here is the GT team looked at the ending Akira Toriyama gave to them, and they said, nah. They had absolutely zero interest in doing anything at all with Oob. We time skip from the end of that Tenkaichi Budokai where Goku and Oob meet to Oob's graduation ceremony. And 7 minutes into the first episode of GT, Oob flies off, and we don't see him again for another 20 episodes. They just skipped it. The number one expectation I had going into this series was that we'd see Goku training his new pupil. The one he stopped everything for, the one he left his family for, the one he saw all this potential in, the one he basically wished for when he killed Buu. We don't see them do anything together at all. No training at all, no character growth. Just this last fight where Oob is already strong. What is this, Attack of the Clones? They throw a couple ki blasts at each other and then he's gone. They completely skipped Goku and Oob's training. So at this point, I'm in shock because you could already tell they're not going to respect the original story at all. And I just have to laugh if you're in Japan watching this week to week. Last week's episode ended with Goku meeting this kid. There's all this hype, this potential. Dragon Ball Z ends with this beautiful, optimistic message. Both of them are smiling as they fly off into the sunset. And then he's gone 7 minutes into the very next episode. Oob got maybe a minute of screen time total. He's completely discarded. And spoiler, Oob shows up a few more times in GT, but does basically nothing in this show. The GT team legitimately threw this character, and indeed the ending to Toriyama's Dragon Ball story, in the trash. This has already gone off the rails, but we ain't done yet. Next, we see the Pilaf gang loudly walking around in their giant robots as they steal the legendary Black Star Dragon Balls and prepare to summon Shenlong. The commotion with Oob and Goku is over with, so at this point I can only assume Goku, Dende, and Popo are just hard of hearing? Stupid? I mean, it shouldn't be this easy for randoms to waltz into the heavenly realm and just steal some stuff, right? Like, am I crazy here? So Pilaf is gonna finally get his wish for world domination. Meanwhile, Goku is eating. And boy, if you watch Dragon Ball GT, you better get used to hearing Goku either eating or complaining that he's hungry. Pilaf manages to successfully summon the dragon, and I gotta tell you, the music here is pretty good, and I've always really liked this design on the Black Star Dragon. Shenlong with the red and gold is an awesome look. He's like a shiny Pokemon, but like a good shiny. So Goku notices that the sky is all dark and a giant red dragon is spawned, so he decides to investigate. Pilaf and his gang are like 3 steps away from the entrance to the lookout. We get some decent comedy here with Goku recognizing Pilaf and Pilaf remembering Goku from all those years ago. They are obviously not a threat at all and are treated like total joke characters. So they continue their back and forth, and then Pilaf says to Goku, and this is where we realize Shenlong is an idiot. Maybe the god before Piccolo Daimao was really powerful, but he made the dragon itself really stupid, as like a joke? Because this sentence from Pilaf, not only was it not a wish, but it wasn't even remotely told in the direction of the dragon. And yet the dragon somehow interprets it as a wish to turn Goku into a kid and grants it. Now look, I don't know why this has to be so hard. We've seen time and time again that you need to use specific language to summon the dragon and wish for something. Shenlong always just kind of sits there idly by as our characters chat, and he'll chime in with a line like, are you gonna wish for something or what? Like he's not just some airhead animal that will respond to key words. He can talk and he understands sentences. You direct a wish at the dragon. That's how it's always been. So why in the name of shit would he interpret this random line as a wish? How about this line? Why didn't the dragon say,
That is Son Goku. Your wish is granted. Farewell.
I mean, why not, right? If he's just gonna interpret random sentences not directed to him as a wish, why not this one? Is this really the best they could come up with to turn Goku into a kid?
This doesn't make any sense.
Now, I don't think it was some masterpiece of storytelling or anything, but the wish to turn Goku into a kid in Daima makes far more sense. Goma at least has a plan here. He knows the dragon can't just kill a powerful enemy, so he'll have to be a bit more crafty with his wish. He figures that turning these godly fighters into children will weaken them dramatically. So that's his very intentional wish for the dragon. And he's doing it because he feels he won't be able to defend his throne as Demon King otherwise. Like, it's nothing special, but it's fine. It's something. It's not an accident. That's enough for me. Toriyama was able to achieve the bare minimum here in Daima, giving a reason why a villain would wish such a silly thing into existence, and provide at least a somewhat logical explanation behind those actions. We learn why Goma wants to make the wish, and see his thought process play out with Degesu as he comes up with the evil scheme. All I wanted was a logical reason why a villain would want to turn Goku into a kid. And Daima was able to deliver on that. Was it really that hard to think up a way for Pilaf to turn Goku into a kid on purpose, instead of doing it accidentally, which makes him, the dragon, and the entire show look completely dumb right from the get-go? They could not have kicked this entire story off on a worse note. Anyways, Goku is now a kid, Dende and Popo are shocked, and we get our first eye catcher of the series, which is adorable and I love it. We are officially halfway through the worst episode of Dragon Ball ever written, but there's still a whole other half to go. I'm slowly losing the will to live here. But let's reflect back for a moment on the first half of this episode. You may not have noticed it, but it's kinda insane if you think about it, just how much has happened in only the first 10 minutes of this show. You're probably thinking, well, big deal, who cares? They're just starting up the story. The thing is though, the fact that so much has happened already is cause for concern. It's actually a major reason why I think this episode is such a massive failure, and indeed, why GT as a whole struggles to tell a clear, coherent, well-paced story. In just the first half of this episode, we saw Goku sparring with Oob, Pilaf reaching Kami's lookout, Pilaf finding the Black Star Dragon Balls, Oob completing his years-long training with Goku and flying off to his family, Goku finding Pilaf's gang, and finally, a quote-unquote wish being made, and Goku turning into a kid. Now, you might be thinking, that's not even that much, bro, relax. But no. No. You're wrong. You're very wrong. This episode, and indeed Dragon Ball GT in general, moves far too quickly. So quickly you can't even wrap your head around anything really. When one thing of importance happens, boom, we're already on to the next thing. Doesn't Oob already feel like a distant memory now that Goku is a kid? This is the first episode of the show, and we've already met so many characters, and so much has happened, and there's so much plot, and there's so many questions being asked, and everything is already so messy. We still don't know how much time has passed since last week's final episode of DBZ. Goku mentions it's been years since he's been home, but how long exactly? Before we can even gain our bearings in this new time period and see what our characters have been up to and what has changed, Oob is out of the picture and Goku is a kid. Too fast. I'll get back to this whole issue of GT's absurdly fast pace after we recap the second half. So we come back to see Kaio-sama talking about the situation with Dende. Kaio-sama knows about these Dragon Balls, but it seems like Dende didn't. He says, apparently the previous god put them away deep within the temple. So, you're the new god of Earth and no one told you about this? Also, they weren't that deep within the temple. Pilaf, a literal joke character, was able to find them with ease just moments after reaching your damn lookout. GT really does a number on Dende. In no way does he ever feel like the god of Earth. He's just dumb and confused all the time. Kaio-sama then tells us that the only way the wish can be reverted is if the Black Star Dragon Balls specifically are found and a new wish is made to the red Shenlong. Okay, fair enough. The Black Star Dragon Balls are the most powerful Dragon Balls of all. Not even the Earth or Namek Dragon Balls could undo those wishes. I can buy that, I guess. It would be too easy to just find another set of balls and wish for Goku to become an adult again. But here's the thing, Goku doesn't really mind being a kid. I mean, what's the drawback? At this point, we don't know if Goku is weaker than he was in his adult state. I would assume he is. I would assume he's back to the same strength he had in the original Dragon Ball when he was that age, with maybe a few new techniques he's picked up over the years. But the whole point of this was to nerf Goku, right? They want to go back to the roots. They want to step back from the Buu saga that pushed the utter limit, right? So as a viewer here, I'm assuming Goku is now much, much weaker, which means there's an incentive to find these Dragon Balls. We all know Goku is Earth's mightiest hero, and if he's not at full strength, a new foe could pop up at any time and threaten the universe. So we have some incentive to find the Dragon Balls and restore our hero to his full strength. At least that's what I thought. Okay, now this next scene is an absolute doozy. We get Popo explaining more rules of the Black Star Dragon Balls. First of all, the fact that he even knows these rules means he knew about the existence of these Dragon Balls, right? So why wouldn't he tell Dende about them? The new god of Earth? Popo knew, somehow Pilaf knew about them, but Dende and Goku were kept in the dark on this? Where's Piccolo, by the way? He should know about this, right? He low-key created them, kinda. Why isn't he getting involved here? Where is he and what is he doing? Also, why would you keep 7 Dragon Balls gathered together in one spot, out in the open, for anyone to use? I mean, keep 6 in one spot and hide the 7th elsewhere, no? Doesn't that make more sense? Instead of doing the dumbest thing possible, which allows a schmuck like Pilaf to sneak in and use them with ease? Why not lock them in a vault? Why isn't the room they're locked in behind 50 doors that only Dende has the keys for? How could you be so careless with such important and dangerous objects? Okay, let's hit play and continue with the episode. Next, Popo says after these Black Star Dragon Balls are used, they scatter not just across the planet, but the entire galaxy. Okay, pause. How do you know that? How do you know that? Did you test them and see what happens after using them? I don't think you did, because we're about to learn another fun rule about these stupid Black Star Dragon Balls that tells me you probably didn't test them. Anyways, Goku shrugs and tells them he doesn't mind being a kid. It's fine, and he flies off. Then the dumbest thing ever happens. We cut to a full-blown hostage crisis in the city. I know these robberies or heists are depicted as comedy in the world of Dragon Ball, but these are real people with real guns and real hostages. It's a pretty serious situation, is it not? Like, these criminals are maniacs shooting their guns around. There's a legitimate chance that they could kill someone here. So one of their bullets actually flies through the air and into the restaurant next door, where Goku is eating. So while this hostage situation is going on, Goku is completely ignoring it and focused on eating his food. Now maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like Goku would go and help these people? Like, isn't that the Goku character first and foremost? If nothing else, Goku likes to train, he likes to fight, and he helps people in need. Even in a comedy scene, I really don't like to see him eating food while there's a very real crisis going on. You could fix this scene so easily and still keep the comedy intact. Goku realizes there's trouble nearby, and while he's eating, he easily dispatches the criminals and makes sure everyone is safe, all while casually eating his food. Instead, the GT team writes Goku like a low-key psychopath, ignoring a bunch of murderers and treating the whole situation like it's a minor inconvenience. So at this point, I'm completely stunned. We're 13 minutes into Dragon Ball GT and I already have pages of notes, mostly notes of pure rage. Almost every single scene and every single line in this episode is making me want to no longer be alive. I mean, it can't get any worse than this, right? Well, let's meet Pan. Remember Pan? Here's a reminder. She's the adorable little granddaughter of Son Goku. All we really know about her is that she's ridiculously strong, she can fly around the earth with ease, and she likes to fight, like she's taken after her grandfather, big time. The bonding scenes between the two of them in the last few episodes of DBZ were great, and going into Dragon Ball GT, I assumed she'd be one of the major characters in this new show. And I was right. So, given how the character was established at the end of DBZ, let's see. How does the GT team introduce Pan, a major character, to the viewer? Oh, she's walking down the street with some guy, and the first words out of his mouth are, to which she responds,
私の方こそ誘ってもらって嬉しかった。
At this point, I think it's important to bring up the fact that GT never actually tells us how much time has passed since the end of DBZ. But according to the GT Perfect File books, it's revealed that 5 years have passed. At the end of Dragon Ball Z, Pan is 4 years old. Let's do some math here. Some math even a 4th grader could understand. What is 4 plus 5? In this scene, Pan is either 9 or 10 years old. That's a 4th grader. And these GT writers thought, you know what would be a real good idea? If the very first words out of her mouth in this show was her thanking a dude for asking her out on a date. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was in the 4th grade, I wasn't going on dates. I was watching Dragon Ball Z and cartoons. I just can't even fathom what was going through their heads when they wrote this dialogue for the 9-year-old Pan. Anyways, this guy wearing the hottest 1990s Japanese streetwear tries to rizz up Pan, but fails miserably. Well, thank God that scene is over and we're back to the hostage situation. Oh my God, I'm thankful we're back to the hostage situation. Anyways, Goku is still eating food casually and ignoring the very real danger that is happening just outside the restaurant. What a hero that Goku is. And now his granddaughter is out there at the active crime scene. Shouldn't he sense her ki and say hello? You know, while rescuing the hostages and knocking out those criminals? No? Okay, I don't even have the energy to get mad at the random Roshi perv scenes that are peppered throughout this episode. Also, what a coincidence that Pan just happens to be walking by this crime scene and Goku just happens to be eating at a restaurant beside the crime scene. This is the first of many, many, many happy coincidences here in Dragon Ball GT. It's really lazy writing. I mean, would it be so hard to have Pan hear a commotion, fight off the criminals, and then Goku senses a familiar ki and goes to investigate? That's an easy and sensible way to have Goku and Pan meet and then catch up with each other. Like, it would be so easy to not have Goku come off like a jerk and ignore crimes taking place beside him and not be creepy about Pan. That's really not hard, I promise. So anyways, these guys are straight unloading the clip, shooting rockets at buildings. This is GTA level insanity. I'm talking 5-star wanted level. They're shooting wildly. It's actually comedic just how unhinged they write these guys. And Goku, Earth's greatest hero, is ignoring all of it. The restaurant he's in is collapsing onto him, and he just continues eating. I mean, it's kind of funny, like I laughed, but I really feel like there's a line for Goku. Luckily, Pan to the rescue. She hops onto a car and gives those criminals a piece of her mind. Look here, you bank robber guys. I wish you wouldn't interfere with my date. Jesus Christ. So now that Pan has arrived on the scene and can easily take out all these jabronis on her own, now Goku gets off his ass to get involved. He slowly walks over to the criminals while eating his dinner like a complete dick. After this already happened, for some strange reason, Goku completely ignores his granddaughter. Now, I get he hasn't seen her in years, but we know these people can sense ki. Goku should immediately recognize the ki of a freaking Saiyan, right? Meanwhile, Pan doesn't recognize Goku either. I'll cut her some slack, she might not remember the dude. She last saw him when she was 4 years old, and now he's a kid for some reason. But I mean, that hair? You don't recognize the hair, Pan? Anyways, Pan dispatches these fools with ease in a pretty badass scene that is animated really well. Pan is proud of her work and goes back to her date, who proceeds to ditch her. What is wrong with bro? She just dodged like 100 bullets and beat up a bunch of criminals in a totally badass moment. And you're, what, scared of her now? Maybe he realized halfway through the hostage crisis that going on a date with a 9-year-old isn't such a good idea? Pan is pissed and cries out in sadness, "I've been dumped again." Wait, again? So are dates like a normal, everyday thing for Pan? Oh my God, get Roshi away from Pan, please. Hey, it's another coincidence. Roshi just so happens to be in the city that day, right where Goku and Pan are fighting some criminals. Roshi recognizes Goku's ki, which means Goku should recognize Pan's ki, but for reasons unknown, he doesn't. Pan is understandably shook from the realization that this is her grandfather, and he's a little boy now. Okay, we're 20 minutes in. Thank God. This episode is almost over and we can move on with our lives. Goku heads back home to share the news with his family, and the reactions are pretty funny. Pan thinks it's just awful to have a grandfather who's even smaller than her. Chi-Chi has an existential crisis about being an Earthling and aging normally. It's good stuff. The great scholar Gohan suggests that Goku find all these Black Star Dragon Balls so he could turn back to normal. But again, Goku doesn't really feel the need to go back to normal. He's fine as a kid. Then Kaiosama chimes in to wrap this shit show up with one last banger for the road. The GT writing team realized there's no real reason for Goku to go out and find the Dragon Balls because his character wouldn't mind being in the body of a kid. So, we have to give him a reason. Enter the ultimate ass pull. To create some kind of tension for the characters, Kaiosama says he's looked into the Black Star Dragon Ball situation, and it turns out you have to find the Black Star Dragon Balls within a year, or else the planet they were used on will blow up. Trying to understand the logic of this rule in-universe is so difficult it makes me physically ill. Why would the God of Earth create Dragon Balls with such an absurd stipulation attached? Did he do it as a joke or something? Why would anyone ever want to make a wish with this stipulation? Like, why do these exist? What is the point? Also, why are they given a year before the planet blows up? Why not a day? Or immediately? A year is an arbitrary amount of time because when these balls were created, there was no Dragon radar. You couldn't even find the Earth Dragon Balls in a year without a radar, much less balls scattered across the universe. There's just no logic here at all. And with that, the worst episode of Dragon Ball is mercifully, finally over. I hope I've explained myself well here. I thought it was pretty obvious after watching this episode twice that I was witness to some of the worst Dragon Ball material ever written. I mean, I couldn't tell you another episode of Dragon Ball where every single scene and sentence in the entire episode made no sense at all. But indeed, that was the case here with Dragon Ball GT Episode 1. What a way to welcome the audience to a new show. My head is spinning trying to put it all together. It's mind-blowing how much happened in this episode. Remember Oob? Remember Pilaf? Neither do I. This episode just blasted through so many different things so quickly. And as I mentioned earlier, this is actually a serious problem, especially for the first episode of the series.